Welcome back to another episode of That Backyard Property Pod. Today's episode, a mini, but it's a big one. It is huge because there's been some massive changes in the industry. Last week, as this goes out, Macquarie removed themselves from all trust and company lending. Why is this such a big change? The main reason is that most people that use trust or company lending will use Macquarie because of their ease of doing it, the speed in which they do it, and the quality of the product, their loan product. So on Monday last week, they stated that they would reduce everyone or limit everyone to having one company or one trust as an entity or as a borrower. Then come Friday, kaput, gone. Completely removed themselves from that whole component of the industry. The main reason that they're giving is they are removing it because of property spruikers. Buyer's agents or anyone that is not qualified to give advice in the lending space has been spruiking unlimited borrowing capacity by the use of company or trust lending. So if you are watching or listening to this, you would have probably heard of other people talking about unlimited borrowing capacity if you buy in a trust. This was never supposed to be the case. And it got way out of hand. And now Macquarie have pulled the pin. There is a strong chance that APRA or ASIC have come in behind the doors and said, hey, this has got to stop. You are the lender that is probably giving the most borrowing to this space, and people are taking advantage of it. Because nobody should be able to borrow with unlimited consequences. And the reality is, if you are maxing out your borrowing by removing loans that are held within a company or trust, then you're not giving the bank the full picture. This is such big news in the industry. Is anyone or other lenders going to follow? And no doubt the majors, the CBAs of this world, the NABs of this world, the Westpacs are going to be having this conversation whether they will restrict lending in this space, whether they will change the way that they are lending in this space, and whether ASIC or APRA are knocking on their door, because they probably already are, asking them what is going on. At the moment, investor lending is almost 40% of all lending in the country. It's up nearly 7% in this year alone. You can see why ASIC or APRA are sitting there going, hang on a second, why is there so much investor lending? What is going on? And they're putting this down to social media and spruikers on social media. This is changing the game completely. So if you were out there and you were thinking of going ahead with this strategy, you still can. There are still lenders that will do this type of strategy, but let me assure you, it is not unlimited borrowing. The choice of your bank is going to be so crucial moving forward. And as always, policies between banks change quite regularly over time. One bank changes a policy and another one might introduce it. So at the moment, I'm using other banks other than Macquarie because I felt that there was something changing in the water, and there's still banks that are allowing this position to happen. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go under the hood. The reason why a lot of brokers and buyers agents were obviously spruiking this is the way that banks interpret or look at your personal borrowing. There's two key things when you're buying within a corporate entity as a trustee for a trust. When you are doing this, there is a chance in a lot of cases that your loan doesn't even show on your personal borrowing or your personal credit report. Therefore, if it's not showing there, the banks can't see it. Very similar to a number of years ago when credit reporting didn't even exist and you had to be truthful and honest with what you were presenting, which hopefully everybody is. there's obviously a few cowboys and cowgirls in this industry. The other thing around it is what they were saying is Macquarie generally will remove any debts within a company name from your personal borrowing. The reason why I like this policy so much is for anyone out there that is self-employed. If you are running your own business and you have a car loan or a credit card or a lease or a hire or even a debt for a property in your company name, then it doesn't show on your personal borrowing calculations. Most banks will factor that in on top of your existing personal debt. That's why Macquarie were really strong in this space. Someone else that does this well is AMP. Whereas the likes of CBA, ANZ, NAB, Westpac, ME Bank, they all factor in company debt into your personal borrowing calculations. So 2 facets here, and Macquarie were fantastic at both of those. Now, if you are in the position of trying to grow your investment portfolio and you've set up trust because of advice you've been given or advice you've seen or read, it is not the end of the world. As I said, there are still banks and lenders that will facilitate this, but the landscape is changing and it can change very, very quickly. So if the reason you're setting up those trusts is to avoid showing those debts to another bank, then those days are long gone now, as of last week. Now, what do we do? How do we differentiate between one bank over another in terms of borrowing? Because the reason people were using trust lending was to borrow more to then increase their portfolio. One key way of doing this is when you're looking at a bank, most banks have a 3% buffer. What does that even mean? So if the interest rate is 5.5%, they are making sure you can afford it, afford the loan at 8.5%. So that's across the board. However, there are some lenders that only have a 2% buffer and even some with a 1% buffer. So the interest rate is 5.5%. They're only assessing you at 7.5%, which means you can borrow more. The other good thing about this is that once you've been with that bank for 12 months, all of a sudden you fall into another category for refinancing with a 1% buffer. So there's a lot of jargon in here. And I think one thing to take away from this is the landscape is changing, but there's still ways of being able to increase your borrowing capacity without keeping all of your cards close to your chest and not disclosing information to the bank. And let's circle back. The easiest way of increasing your borrowing capacity is to close any credit card, because your credit card limit will reduce your borrowing capacity by 5 times the limit. 20K credit card, 100K off your borrowing capacity. Personal loans, car leases. If you currently have a car lease, that is affecting your personal borrowing. So there's a number of ways that we can still borrow more if you're trying to do that and that's your objective. But, a huge but, remember, the debt is something you have to repay. So it's all well and good to borrow as much as you can, but you still need to be comfortable with the debt and the ability to pay the debt. So don't be a prisoner to your loans. And what ASIC and APRA were seeing were people going far beyond their means, borrowing far beyond what they should have been borrowing. If the tides turn, it's that classic analogy of you'll find out who was wearing bathers and who wasn't in the ocean, because that is what has been happening recently. Landscape has changed, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are so many ways we can still structure this. So please, if you are still looking at growing your portfolio and you want more information, reach out and let me answer any question you have. Put them in the comment section, whether that be on Spotify, whether that be on YouTube especially. Let's continue to grow this community. It's so exciting watching everyone bounce around ideas, and we can continue to do that by commenting and subscribing and following to each channel. Thanks again for listening. It is a huge, huge news, and it's going to be fascinating to see what unfolds over the next 6 to 12 months. No doubt we will keep you updated through this channel. Cheers.